Folks, welcome to our Wednesday prayer video, and it's great to be here with Heather Lowry. Heather, we were just established you were baptised in Saintfield Road. You've been lifelong Saintfield Road. You're one of our elders. You have been a teacher throughout your career. Most recently, you were head of music at St Malachy's. But after that, you went and did something a little bit different. So many folks will know, but I recognise there's some people in Saintfield Road who perhaps don't know you or much about what you've been about. So we'll maybe do a little bit of a recap of what you've been about. So Heather, just giving us in broad terms, and also I recognise that some of the things you've been doing have a bit of a sensitivity, so there's some things you can't give us detail in, but for folks who are listening and watching, give us broad terms of what is it you've been doing for the last couple of years?
Okay, well, in 2017 in December, I went to Bangalore in India, and I went there to an orphanage. I'd had some contacts from 2015, 2016 being in Bangalore. I went back to the same children, and at that time they had just taken a new campus outside the city, and they had an orphanage built and they'd staff accommodation built, and so I moved in there at the beginning. Well, really it was December. I left on Boxing Day 2017, and by the beginning of the next year then we had started to try and school the children within the home. And schooling the children had already started in a way with an intern there who's an American and with the wardens, but it was a bit haphazard, and a lot of the children, we couldn't afford to send them out to school, so we were homeschooling. And when I came in there, I got involved in organising the homeschooling to make it easier, to give people some time off because people were just working all the time, and also to try and develop the children into different groups of age and ability where we could actually put them together and they could easily learn together. And there were still children going out to school, and so when they were coming back, there was a little bit of tutoring being done, there was a bit of homeschool liaison. We weren't particularly happy with the way things were going there. So at the end of that term, we started to build a school on the campus. In fact, it was being built right outside my bedroom window. And we built a 4-classroom school. That's 4 classrooms plus 2 blocks of toilets and a computer room, stroke library.
Yeah.
And that coming year then, starting in June, term starts in June. April and May are holidays, term starts in June. From that June, we started to run a school for 35 children then in the home. All of them home children, but then the school was separate in a way with how it was run, and we named it Lighthouse International Academy.
Yeah.
And for that year, we started off with a principal, which didn't work out, and we ended up with Heather Ma'am as the principal. And it was a great year of learning, and it was a great year of fun. The teachers were mostly volunteers, and they didn't know what they were doing, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I think I made a new timetable every day. And the children, but they had children with great fun. We had film afternoons. We had a lovely woman who was an artist come in and did art with them. There was a dance teacher, and all the wardens got involved in teaching as well. And we really set up what would be a proper school, but proper, but yet not registered. So the following year, in order to get registration, we appointed a principal, and she took over, and we had some employed staff, still a lot of volunteers, and I went on to be the English teacher. But really at events, I was also the music teacher. So we called it event-driven music teaching, and it was done very quickly before Christmas or maybe before Diwali or before other things. I was also involved in the home in that I lived there. So on campus, I would have been involved at meal times with the children. I was involved every evening with devotions. I went to church with them. I was also involved sometimes at playtime. But in the evenings then I went back to the school building, and I worked with the children who were studying for GCSE, 10th standard, and those studying for A-level, which is 12th standard. And they came into school again from 8:15 until 10:15. And then that was kind of the day over. But they got up at 5 o'clock the next morning, and I didn't. They got up at 7.
So Heather, you've been home volunteer, but also much more than that, a kind of significant presence in the home. You've been school setter-upper, principal, music teacher, English teacher. And in the last 3 years then? About 3 years?
Almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years. And I recognise we'll come to sort of where things are at the moment, obviously, given current circumstances. But this, what's the school looking like now? So it's got a principal and employees, teachers?
Yes, when school was to start in June, there were 4 new staff, and I was to move from the classroom to be remedial English teacher, because after the first year, when I was in charge of the school, when the new principal came, we started to take children in from other children's homes. So there was a boys' home called Rays of Hope, and 18 boys came there. And of those boys, only a few of them were really good at English, and a lot of them still speaking their heart language at home. So when they went home to Ray of Hope, they weren't speaking English, and were the benefits to our children who speak English all day and wanted to speak English all the time to improve their English. These boys weren't really encouraged to do that. So I was spending a lot of time with them, because they might have been 6th standard in Canada, which is the language, but they were only like 2nd standard in English, and every subject was in English. So those 4 teachers coming in were allowing me and some others to change our role. So from the 1st of June, I should have been the remedial English teacher. And also we have some children who are behind for other reasons. Maybe they just have, a couple of the children have actual ADD, and some are Asperger's, and we have a child who has fetal alcohol syndrome, and I was able to work with the one-to-one. And so when people came from Belfast to stay in the home for a while with me, they kind of took my job over, and I did some one-to-one, and I find that very valuable. And if I had been there this academic year, or should I say if school was running this academic year, that's what I would have been doing. So the principal was there, then there were going to be 10 full-time staff, and I would have actually just been an extra.
From a school that didn't exist.
From a school that didn't exist. And last year, the director of the school had actually bought a little factory, and would put it on the campus, and it was going to be a textile factory. But that was just kind of a, we'll take it off your hands kind of idea. So we built 4 new classrooms in it. And just 2 weeks ago, I had a donation from America, which is allowing us to put the ceiling and the floors in. Because everything's of a very high spec. You know, the floors are marble and the ceilings are there to stay, I hope. But we put 4 more classrooms in, and that allowed us then to be registered at a higher level, because we had 8 classrooms and a computer room. So things were definitely going in the right trajectory.
Yeah. Well, before we get to that, Heather, so here's a wonderful story of that, I guess, the home growing bit and the school developing and things happening. If that's the macro picture, tell us a little bit about some of the people friendships you developed, some of the children that you've seen go through, because I suppose even in those 2 or 3 years you've seen children develop and stories of children, and I'm sure you could keep us all day telling us all about different children, but tell us a little about some of those folks.
I'll tell you about 2 brothers, and then I'll tell you about 2 sisters.
Great.
So some of the pictures that you'll have seen of my time in India, there's a boy in a wheelchair, and he's Tanu. And Tanu was in a very bad fire with his mother, when his father actually murdered his mother in a fire. And Tanu was found in the ashes of the fire and lost a limb. But he was found by his brother, Shashi. And for some time, Reaching Hand supported Tanu, put him through lots of operations, and he was in hospital for 2 years after the accident.
Let me just ask, so Reaching Hands, just to remind folks, because we've talked about Lighthouse,
That's the NGO that is over New Home and over Lighthouse Academy, and has other projects also.
Great.
So it's an NGO.
Thanks.
So Tanu was very badly injured. Shashi came back from school. He's 5 years older, and when he found his brother, then he took his brother to the hospital, and Reaching Hand then took over, and I think probably at that time the Children's Welfare Committee were also involved. Anyway, Shashi went off to live with a distant relative, but after a number of years, Shashi came to us, and Shashi has fought school the way no other boy could fight school. Every term when I arrived and he was doing 10th, we couldn't keep him in the school we had him at. He was at Capstone School, and we had to bring him home because he was so disruptive. But lots of issues going on with his head. This is the bigger brother. Tanu was thriving. He was 10, so he was going through standard 5 and doing very well, and physically really improving as well. He had a prosthetic leg bought, and he was doing very well. Shashi fought school, as I say. We brought him home, And when I would walk past where I was trying to teach him 1-to-1 instead of having him at school, he was often like taking the legs off spiders and things to see if it would still move. And he would be tying up lizards and just was having the best fun. Shashi's currently a boy warden in the home. So he's finished his 12th, that means he's got his A-levels, and he's a boy warden in the home until he goes to the Taj Hotel, where he's going to be on the 3-year chef course. And he loves cooking, and he's always in the kitchen. So success story for Shashi. Tanu is still there, will be supported right through, and as a boy in a wheelchair, there will be prospects for him. He's very good at IT, he's very good at art. Shashi's also a very good artist. So those 2 boys, that really, a great story.
Yeah.
2 girls then, you might have seen in Seaford Road, they had prayer points with Renica and Ruth.
Yes.
And Ruth she's just a graduate, she's just graduated, but she's 2 years younger than she should be graduating. And Ruth has AIDS. And so she came to us again when her parents died of AIDS. And she was very young. She came to us, and then after a couple of years, she mentioned a sister. And we didn't know she had a sister. And the extended family had kept the sister really as a domestic servant. And she was in domestic servitude until she was 14. And CWC managed to get her freed from that and brought to us. And when I went to the home, she was also studying for 10th. You can do 10th until you're 40. So but you need to get 10th because
keep doing it.
You can't get 12th until you've done 10th, and you can't get any job without 12. And she's currently doing 12th. But she came back to the home, and now she's graduated. She's in the city. Both her and Ruth are now living independently. They're living in a PG, which is a paying guest house. And Baun is actually running the textile factory, which was making bags for shopping. There's no plastic in Bangalore. It's illegal to carry plastic. You get charged 100 rupees a pound if you're found with a plastic bag. Look out. So she was involved in bag making and was running that factory. Now they're making masks, because masks are very much needed, and so the whole factory has turned around, and she's kind of in charge of 4 or 5 men, which is very unusual. And she's now 21, 22, and she's finishing 12th this year. She's just finishing off her commerce. So again, a great story. And Ruth came through 12th at a very early age, and now she's studying psychology, sociology, and journalism at the college, at a degree college. So for both those girls, such a turnaround and they have nobody. They have each other only. The extended family isn't there anymore. Granny is dead. So yes, those are 2 that really, would touch your heart.
Yeah, and kind of precious and a privilege to be involved in their stories too.
Yes, there's quite a few siblings in the home. Although the boys and girls are very separate and they don't have much of a relationship between the boys and girls, quite a few. It's a big brother, little sister, big sister, little brother. There's quite a few of those in the home.
Heather, we've alluded to the fact that if you were in India, this will be happening, or if the school were open, this will be happening. We all know where we're at with COVID-19. We've probably heard on the news about India too. The very fact I can have this interview with you here in Belfast as opposed to doing it over Zoom with you in India is indicative of where things are at. Tell us what COVID-19 and the current situation has meant for you and for the home and the school.
So I was in India when we locked down, and Modi did it very quickly. The president did it very quickly, and we didn't have a lot of time to prepare. But some people come in to work in the campus, like some people come in to farm the land, and some people come in to work in the kitchen, and our cleaners come in from the village. We employ people in the village. And so the first thing we just did was stop that. We just said, no one's to come in, no one's to go out. And the government had said no one's to go out anyway. You couldn't go out in your car unless you had a permit, and you had to get the permit to say, I can drive to the hospital or I can drive to the airport. But even that closed down after. So I was there for 4 weeks while we were just a bubble, as we would call it now, all these new terms, of 85 people. And
it's a big bubble.
It's a big bubble, but it meant there was no social distancing. We were just a family. and there wasn't really enough food. We had a few lovely gifts from the local police force because we were feeding them chai because they were in the local at the intersection of the local village. They were stopping cars there and stopping bikes and telling people not to be out, and we were feeding them chai and sometimes snacks and things. So one of them had a birthday and he brought us a large sack of rice, and we needed it. But in January there had been a big consignment of rice and oil and dal had come from JP Morgan, so there was food, but we just didn't know how long the food would be good for, and we didn't know how long we'd be locked down for. So I then had the decision to make as to stay. Will I stay or will I go? And a lot of my flights, because I'm supposed to be on home assignment from April and May anyway, so I was due to fly home in April. Those flights were cancelled, May flights were cancelled, and then I applied for a British repatriation flight, and I came out on the repatriation flight, and that was middle of April. So since then, the home has been shut down really permanently through that time. There's been a little bit of movement, whereas the graduates that we brought home for safety, they've gone back to work. And there have been a few trips to the hospital for other things than COVID. One of the driver fundraisers had a heart attack, and one of the children had burst appendix. Good reasons to go to the hospital, but just because it had to be. So I came out then, and since then I've been in a house on the Malone-Lisburn Road in Osborne Park. So for me then there was isolation when I came, quarantine for 2 weeks, and a little bit of social distancing and just being careful since I've come back. Will I talk about how long I'll be here for, or?
Do you know? Yeah, I suppose that's my last question. Really building up to that. Because actually we heard you a little bit on Sunday night previously. Yes. Just talk a little bit about both the shock and of being back in stillness, but also the kind of the beauty, I suppose, of time a bit. But I mean, for all of us, I guess we're feeling the uncertainty.
Yeah.
But at least we have some picture of what life might look like for many of us. How does that look for you, and how does that look for the home and the school? Because I know you're kind of still in contact a bit, hearing from individuals, I guess, but
yes.
How does that work out?
The children who are at college in India will go back in October. That's the first time they're thinking that there might be any let up. The school
bearing in mind that she starts in June, is that right? Or?
Term starts in June. Yeah. So
would have started.
It would have started in June. The school itself has not opened. There has been some older children teaching younger children to kind of amuse them because they weren't doing anything really very useful, and so they're getting English and maths, and they're probably getting some science, and I'm sure a lot of fun. I've no idea how the school will do it, but they're talking about doing online teaching. But neither of the other orphanages have internet, and our home doesn't really have enough computers. So that's talk, but I don't know. It would be great if that happened, but I don't know that that's going to happen. Many of my Indian friends seem to think that the height of COVID in India will be November. So that put paid to my idea of going back in October. Well, I was to go back on 29th of May, of course. So really October's not looking good. My visa in India is up in December. So in a way, it seems that I won't be back on that visa. Some things have changed in India, which means that I won't actually get another employment visa, so I may be travelling on a tourist visa. So yes, uncertainty, lots of uncertainty. I'm planning at the moment to stay in Northern Ireland until January. Just because people say maybe that will be the good time, but actually we don't know. If I had to isolate in India, it would be difficult and probably very expensive. They suggest that you isolate in a hotel, and that can be £700 to do for 14 days, although they bring you all your food. To isolate not in a hotel means you have to really organise people to look after you. And if you're in a house that didn't have air conditioning, or didn't have a fan, or didn't have a mosquito bat, which is more important than air actually, because you can't sleep without a mosquito bat, I wouldn't want to be quarantining there. So I guess I'm just deciding that God has said to me, still, be still, and know that I'm God, just to take this time to do other things, and to sit still, and to catch up with people, and to do some useful things if I can. I'm signed up to do some iTalk with the International Friendship Centre, and just some things you can do on Zoom. I'm still visiting Bangalore fairly often by Zoom, and in fact attended a child's baptism last week on Zoom, and I do stay, particularly some of my musical friends who I met through, I took a choir in a local church when I was there, and so that those choir members are really friends with me now, so I was on with them just finding out how it's going, and COVID for them, everyone around them is COVID positive, and people are dying, and they're all asking questions about their own safety, and of course there's so many cases in India at the moment that it doesn't make sense for me to go there.
Heather, I'm sure out of that, as people listen to you, there's many things they can think about praying for, but in particular, are there any prayer points you'd love to kind of put before us and say, please pray for this for me, for the home and school, the wider situation?
Yes, I think you could pray certainly for the school and for the right decisions to be made for the safety of the children, because as soon as the teachers start coming in, that bubble is broken, and there's obviously fear. If the teachers do actually physically start coming in, even into October when the children start going out to college and going out into a COVID world and coming back into the home, again, there's a danger there. So there's a lot of uncertainty, just praying for the right decisions to be made at the right time in India. Currently there has been some work being done on the school to sort of get it up to spec, so those builders even are coming in. There's all those risks, so really just pray for a COVID-free life for the home and for the school. For me, just that I would make the right decisions and not fill up my time with stuff that isn't important, but to try and find good things for myself to do, because I think I said on Sunday night I was a run around do things person, and I don't really want to go back to that. So the right relationships, the right time spent walking or trying to dodge the showers, which is now, to pray for that. And also for the future, because if I don't get a work visa, I can't work. It wouldn't be okay for me to work on a tourist visa, because if there was a check on it and integrity, there we go. If I say I'm a tourist, I'll be a tourist. And I might be able to go and play with the children or spend an afternoon with the children, but I can't actually work with them. And it would be about relationships that I've made with graduates, going and having lunch with them or dinner with them, but I'd actually be a tourist.
Yeah. Heather, it's been so good to chat with you and catch up with you a bit and hear a bit about what has been going on, and we rejoice in that, but also hear about what's going on at the moment, and we continue to pray for that and pray with you in that. It's been great to have you back in Northern Ireland. I know part of your heart is really here, but we also know part of your heart is in India too, and that kind of tells you with where you want to be at any one time. Heather, we continue to pray with you and be with you in that. The Lord bless you and keep you.
Thank you, Ben.